El cuento de nunca acabar, the never-ending story. Buenos días, compañeros. Today, I will reflect and explain the realm of stories and storytelling, why stories are so potent and how they help us navigate the past, the present, and the future. I begin with the notion that culture is ultimately the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, tales told and retold by family elders around the kitchen table, with potent themes of past collective struggles, resilience and survival, los días de más y los días de menos, humorous yarns de cuando andaban las gallinas alforotadas, and the sad, tragic accounts de como la vida no retoña. Stories explore human experience, whether real or imagined. We are all guardians of an inherited, ongoing archive of stories, some collected in print culture, others transmitted in oral tradition. We tell and write tales to recall our origin and envision our future. Stories, cuentos, initiate us into the collective social norms, values, beliefs, and aspirations of our particular cultures. Poetic, dramatic, sung, and dance narratives encode multiple patterns and options that can be integrated into our lives outside the text. Stories teach us to dream alternatives. Stories are never ending, since each generation resignifies the traditional tales as told across generations. After many years of teaching the arts and humanities at the university level, I have concluded that culture is composed of the anecdotes and stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. Stories encode the worldview, the ethos of a community. Latinos have a long and rich repertoire of stories, written and oral. Stories are never ending, since each generation resignifies the traditional tales told and retold across generations. There is always some elder in the group who has el don de la palabra and can hold you spellbound with story after story after story after story. Una vez, hace muchos años, is one opening formula for many tales. I will tell you a personal story that I call El Cuento de los Panes. Una vez, during one of my periodic visits to my hometown of San Antonio, Texas, while my mother was still alive, she and I visited a local panaderia. As we entered the bakery, I greeted the attendant, and when she asked, ¿En qué le puedo servir?, I responded, Señorita, por favor, deme 5 pesos de pan surtido, por favor. She took the bread, gave it to me. Aquí tiene, señor. Son 5 pesos de pan surtido. Gracias, señor. Que tenga un buen día. As we walked to the car, my mother smiled at me and somewhat archly asked, Ay, hijo, yo pienso que te has olvidado los nombres de los panes. ¿Por qué pediste pan surtido? Ya bien sabes que una concha no es igual que una campechana y un polvorón difieren mucho de un marranito o de una semita. Recuerda que cada pieza de pan dulce tiene su propia forma, su especial textura y su nombre particular. Es como la gente, cada quien tiene su nombre especial, su esencia especial. Es diferente todos somos iguales, pero todos también somos diferentes a la vez. Ay, hijo, yo pienso que cuando se olvidan los nombres de los panes, se olvida la cultura. Now, many years later, I can decipher the cultural lesson my mother was teaching me. She was instructing me about both the resilience and fragility of cultural tradition. School, books, and cultural institutions indoctrinate us to the classical arts, literature, music, visual culture, cultural practices that are closer to the ground, los nombres de los panes, depend on embodied transmission across generations. Traditions are both evanescent and eternal. Once you forget or discontinue ephemeral and intangible customs, los nombres de los panes, they are gone and lost forever. Similar to concerns about non-renewable resources, we must confront the notion of non-renewable cultural resources. Knowledge systems that are passed on through performative repetition, such as singing, dancing, cooking, and oral storytelling, depend on peer-to-peer or intergenerational transmission. An adage reminds us, when an elder dies, a whole library vanishes. In today's dystopian, grim, and dark times, amid a global COVID pandemic, with natural disasters of hurricanes, fires, global warming, together with crime and gun violence, I still remain optimistic and cling to the notion of esperanza, hope. We hope that those we love will continue to be with us and love us in return. We hope that tomorrow will be better and safer than today, and trust that our Latinx cultural workers will continue to lift our spirits and inspire us with their artistic visions. Our visual artists, poets, musicians, dramatists, and performers in all genres constantly remind us of the mutable world we live in, a world full of resonance, wonder, and hope, a world where nothing is too wonderful not to be true. Que así sea. Gracias.